Welcome to Fan Flak. We're live, and yes, I'm here. The This has been a oh my gosh, Mark is already frozen. Oh, he's back. Okay. I want to say first of all up front, this is copyright 2022 by everybody you see before you, and fan lore. If you want to quote me on things, by all means, email me and ask. Okay. We have with us today a wonderful writer. He's written so many books. And he is speaking today about a special favorite of his, which is, yeah, oh, I'm sorry. I haven't introduced my brother Mark. This is my co host, that Oscar winning rabbit, Mark Tanner. And
I thought you were saying I had written books, so I was going to say, okay, I'll take the credit.
Not that I've read anything. Anyway, but John Kenneth Muir, who is just an amazing writer, and he's a big Blake 7 fan, and so let's introduce him instead of me sitting here yakking. Welcome, John.
Hello, thank you. Hi, Melody. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
We are all doing great.
Wonderful.
We're fine.
Great. Well, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being with us.
Absolutely.
I believe you actually said yes.
Of course I said yes.
Writer.
Thank you for your kind words about my books.
Oh, you are. You're terrific. And
Thank you.
what I loved reading your book many years ago when I read it, I sort of reread it last night, is your contemplative, careful analysis and the fact that you get it on several levels. And most of the time you get, you read somebody summing up Blake 7 and they say, well, it's Star Trek and only turned on its side. And Kirk and Spock hate each other. And it's like, what show were you watching?
That's right.
You know, though, Melody, any TV show that is crew-based is always going to be compared to Star Trek. That's just how it is. Well, even if there's no similarity.
Right.
Well, Carrie Nation consciously did this. I mean, Star Trek, it's even the Federation insignia turned on its side. It's,
right.
Or Starfleet insignia. And it has that flavor, but you have to go beneath the surface. And Avon in particular is a really complicated character. He's far more complex than Spock. And he's, it just, people watch it, they watch a couple of episodes and then they do the write-up, that's sort of what it is. But
now it's made in England, right?
It was.
Yes.
Blake 7?
Yes, it was.
Okay, now Avon is a place in England, as I recall. So is there some significance in them naming the ship after the place?
No, the ship was not named Avon. Avon was one of the main characters.
Right.
Oh, because I heard you say Avon. I thought that was the ship.
No, that's the character who you might think is sort of the number 2 lead, but as the show goes on, becomes very much the number 1 lead.
Yeah, he becomes the star.
I am proving my statements that I haven't seen the show. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. I mean, you're going to learn a lot about it today.
Yeah, I have tried. I have tried, John.
I am always looking for things to binge watch. I've binge watched Battlestar Galactica probably 20 times, and I've seen every episode of every incarnation of Star Trek. I've seen Babylon 5 probably 20 or 30 times, so I'm going to have to move on to something. So, hey, sounds good.
Well, if you're lucky enough to find it streaming, I wrote the book, some years back. So golly, really a lot of years back. I wrote it, I think, in 1998, maybe it was 1997. And so I had to like sort of find all the episodes on VHS, which I did. But then a couple years ago, maybe just a year or so ago, I wanted to share it with my son. So I had to like find the DVDs, get a regionless DVD player, and watch them all with my son, who was, 13 or 14 at the time, to introduce him to it. It was an interesting experience. I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't watched this show in a long time because, again, I don't have a VCR right now that I'm, watching on. So it would be really great if somebody would start streaming Blake 7 for us, and people could experience those 4 seasons again.
Yep, I agree.
How about isn't there BBC streaming service?
There is BritBox. And I could be wrong. Maybe someone will check me on this. But last time I looked, Blake 7 wasn't available.
It is.
Okay. I didn't think so. But, those things change. I mean, it's really amazing. Like some days you'll put in a search for something and it won't come up. And then the next day it's there. Like, what?
It's all of a sudden.
Right. It's like, oh, my gosh, I got to watch this now before it goes away.
You can
BritBox.
You can buy the whole show on DVD.
Yeah.
You can buy the whole show on DVD on Amazon for $64.30.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Well, I have it, so
I have it too. And again, I guess maybe it was summer of 2020 when we were all, in lockdown for COVID, and we didn't really go out and exercise. So we have a stationary bike in our rec room and a rowing machine. And my son and I, before his school in the morning, we would pop on, a Blake 7, we would exercise and watch it. And he really got a kick out of it. I mean, I was really appreciative of the fact. I think we watched The Prisoner and then we watched Blake 7, and total honesty, he absolutely loved The Prisoner. That was like, he'll tell you today that's a masterpiece.
Oh, it is.
And he'll say, and he said, oh, I really like Blake 7, Dad. Blake 7 was really good. He said, man, those special effects. And he's not like hinged on that. That's not all he saw. He could see the stories and the themes and the characters. He's like, yeah, it's really, really good, but man,
well, with the budget they had, Darrow used to say that, rest his soul, that they'd be out in the usual places they used for
the dust quarries or whatever.
Exactly, the quarries and the old buildings and such, and they would shoot for multiple episodes at the same time. I mean, they'd be out there and they'd go from one episode to the other, and the actress who played it was Jan Chappell said at one point, okay, who am I playing? You're always the same character, hon. Oh. Okay.
Well, it's funny because they would often have to go shoot when they were at like Federation installations, like nuclear reactors, industrial sites. And when I was writing the book, I thought it actually kind of works for the show. If the idea is it's like this vast sort of federation that is, dystopic and authoritarian, and sort of some of the infrastructure is like starting to crumble and stuff, it's actually like, yeah, this is great that they're shooting here. I totally buy that. That works. And some of those quarry, they look like, good alien planets. After you've seen one though, they get a little tiring after a while, I guess.
Well, they weren't as fortunate to have the Agua Dulce rocks that we do nearby.
Exactly.
On an alien planet, it's got one for you.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Well, my son did, how does a 14-year-old look at Blake 7? He became absolutely obsessed with Orac, the computer. Orac was his favorite character. And he became very nervous because there would be episodes where they would like miniaturize Orac and like put him in their pocket and go to, on various adventures, or they were in danger and they had to abandon the ship. He's like, did they remember Orac? Dad, we didn't see them pick up Orac. It's like, no, they got Orac. Orac's okay. this sort of computer with a personality, and that so now like we'll go into my son's Minecraft world, which we played again. He's like named his dog Orak in Minecraft.
Oh, there you go.
So it's like some of this really translates. Apparently, Orak is a very sympathetic character to the teenage set for today.
Well, that tells you the what was the act who what was the name of the actor who was the voice actor?
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to consult my book. Was it Tuddenham? No, who was it? Let's see. Who was Orak? God, this is horrible. It's been so long since I wrote the book. Let's see. See, I'm consulting it right here. Somebody should hop in and tell us, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Do we have? I'm getting question marks. No.
Who was Orak?
Yeah, you guys don't remember either.
Oh my gosh. All right, so
I should explain to those who
I'm sure it's here somewhere.
Series that Orak was a box. It was a computer, with bright colors and stuff.
He was like a big desktop.
Yes, exactly. And he had roughly the personality of a sardonic Roddy McDowell.
Right. It was Peter Tuddenham, if I'm saying that right. Sorry, it took a minute to find it. Okay. It's terrible. You get it in your mind and you think, am I right? I don't want to be wrong about this on the air.
I know.
Right? So that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. No, it's been a while since, as I said, I wrote the book in '98, so it's been a while. But we just watch it recently.
I had the wonderful experience of having him correct my pronunciation of his last name, so I'll never forget it.
Who did that?
Yeah, I was saying Tuddenham.
Okay.
And which is what it would be in like Norway.
Okay.
Pardon me. And he said, darling, Tuddenham.
Oh, okay. Thank you. See, so I got the pronunciation wrong too. There you go. Okay, so you learn something new every day.
Yeah. Well, that's one reason why I was so grateful that most of the majors had very easy to pronounce names.
Darrow, that's easy to say.
Yeah, exactly. Well, his last name is Birkby, so or Barkby, as I said. But I know my favorite episode. I wonder what yours was.
I have a number of them, and just to talk about a few of them. I loved the first episode, The Way Back.
Yeah.
Because like that set up the whole world, and then the second episode on the prison. Like the thing that makes Blake 7 so amazing, I think, is that it really moves like a novel. You don't meet anybody who's a main character in the first story except really Blake in any significant way. And I guess maybe do we meet the smuggler Jenna? Do we meet her in that one too? I can't remember. But
I believe she is.
We might meet them in the prison, but his like attorneys who you think are going to be main characters, and they're trying to defend him from these charges in the fair. They get offed in the end, and he gets stuck going to space. So I love that. I loved the Cygnus Alpha, the first story with a planet fall. To me, it just really moves like a novel. It doesn't seem to move on at least when it starts. Sort of on this helter-skelter sort of basis, like here's an episode, and all the characters, and we're all experiencing. So it's like it really, you follow Blake, you go through his trial, you go through his transportation to the colony, you go to Cygnus Alpha, learn about that colony, you get the ship, the Liberator, and then we're off to the races. So you get things like Time Squad. So I love all those. I mean, I think I really do like the first season best. I like Breakdown.
I do too.
I like Duel, the episode that's sort of based on Frederick Brown's Arena story, which has been done a lot. It did on Star Trek, and they did on Outer Limits as Fun and Games. They did on Space 1999 as Rules of Luton. Buck Rogers. I mean, they've just taken that Arena story over and over again. But Blake 7 did that with Duel, but I think it's like a really good story. That said, outside of that one, I really love the last episode of the series, Blake.
Yeah.
think that's a terrific one. I get a real kick. I don't know why, but I'm sort of obsessed with that episode with the sand.
Oh yeah.
I find that really fascinating. So I mean, there's so many good ones. What are some of your favorites, Mel?
Well, first of all, I believe my brother has a question.
Oh,
And
okay.
go ahead, Mark.
Just 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 a little info I dug up in the Blake 7. Orac was voiced by Derek Farr.
Oh, it's Derek Farr. Oh,
Oh,
okay. Oh, okay. I thought it was. Sorry. Okay.
Just in
I
the
thought it was
one
Mel.
episode. Then it was picked up by the other guy.
Oh, okay. Because
oh,
Derek
Did you
Farr
hear?
played Orac's
yeah,
creator. He played Orac's creator, I think,
yeah,
Ensign. I
yeah. He
think.
played.
Well, it
He played
said that
his
it
dad
said he voiced Orac also in just the first.
in the first one. Okay. Okay. That makes
That's
sense.
the Well, I love all the episodes you mentioned. Blake is in. It's so different, and that's one of the things I loved about Blake 7 was it was an adult show.
Mm-hmm.
It
Sure.
was. I know they think of science fiction as always being children's fodder, but the in particular it dealt with. I mean, Blake was accused of being a child molester.
Right.
That's what he was held up um, on charges for,
That's right.
and he. I, I think we've lost Mark. Yeah,
Uh-oh. Yeah, I think we have. I don't. I
yeah.
only see us.
He froze, and then he'll be back. And the drugs were all dealt with extensively, and this is
yes.
the 80s.
Right.
It,
And
it,
there was like you talked about Spock and Kirk before, right? But there was an episode, I think it was called Orbit, maybe, where Villa and Avon were on a ship together, and like it wasn't going to make orbit, so they had to like get weight off the ship, and it was really clear Avon was thinking very seriously about ditching
oh yeah,
Villa to save the weight, and it's like so it was like it's not just a friendly banter like Spock and McCoy maybe. It was like push comes to shove, you're going out the airlock, buddy. So some of the character stuff was very adult, very
yeah.
much so.
I mean, when you consider it, and I know that as all the Villa fans point out, that Avon didn't uh, airlock him, but he certainly, and probably when push came to shove, he'd have stopped being a rational person, and that's the element that I love is that they take reason and logic, which can sometimes be a very benevolent force, and it showed the dark edge to it.
Right.
That quite often the okay, we have Mark coming in. Only he's called Test. Okay, there you are. Are you with us? Can you hear us? I don't think so. We
Oh
can't hear.
no.
Okay.
Oh, we're not hearing you, Mark.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Sorry, kiddo. He's a good brother. Anyway, the the Avon certainly shows that there is a dark edge to logic and reason as
That's a great point.
divorced from emotion, and
Right.
Blake being very emotional, and certainly that shows his, especially when he goes off the rails a little bit as he
Right.
um
Yeah.
it shows the dark edges of both things and that both are needed to balance each other.
I
And
think so. And Villa, I mean, the show doesn't candy coat the fact like he's an alcoholic. He's like, he has things to do, and they're like dragging him to be teleported, and I mean, he's three sheets to the wind. He's basically a terrified man. I mean, the show characterizes him as a coward, who's being dragged along because he lives in mortal fear of death, and the way he gets through that is drinking. So,
Yeah.
there's that. There's the ruthlessness of Avon. There's, Blake kind of has a breakdown mid-series. He sort of can't handle that he's losing, and he kind of goes off the rails, just like you indicated. So, it's this that's what's so fascinating to me about it is it's like, well, you think, okay, this is like playing a little bit on Star Trek, it's playing a little bit on Star Wars, but it's really its own thing, and it goes into some deep, dark areas, pacifying whole populations by drugs so they don't question authority. Some really fascinating characters in this, really interesting science fiction concept. I mean, again, if you look at it, you could say, okay, it's like Star Wars. It's a group of rebels fighting a powerful empire, but
Right.
it goes a lot deeper than that. There isn't really sort of any ideology really in Star Wars. I mean, if you think you go back, it's like the Empire's evil, but we don't really know why. I mean,
Yeah.
they blow up planets and stuff, but like, what are they doing? How are they ruling the galaxy? We don't
Why
really
are they doing this? How is that
right.
a smart thing to do? Yeah.
But Blake 7 really, it goes into that. It sort of goes into the corruption and avarice of the higher Federation officials. It goes into all of those details. It's really this thing. You feel like the creator Terry Nation had this idea that he was really going to be talking about, absolute power corrupting and human nature being corrupt and things like that. Which again makes the show. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I say it makes the show sound really dark, but the show's also really fun. So
It is, and it's very funny.
it is. It's hysterical at times. I mean, some of the things.
The thing laying on the ground, he'd be difficult to love,
Well, and it got to the joke about Star Trek transporters, which was really funny. Which was like,
Yeah.
sort of when they teleport down to the planet and like they don't land on even surface, and they kind of fall.
Yeah.
They trip down a hill and stuff. Which says to me, someone like took that idea of a teleporter and then thought, how would that really work?
Yeah.
It's like, you beam down the corners, but what if you're on an incline, right? And so sometimes they teleport down and like slide down the hill a little bit, and so it was really clever just when it had touches like that, even. So whatever it played against, Star Trek or Star Wars, it knew it was doing that, I think, and did so, really cleverly, which makes it so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and of course, I think when talking about memorable characters, we have to bring up Servalon, who was the talk about a character with many sides to her.
Right.
She was a multifaceted character, and Jacqueline Pierce, of course, played her too. She got into that character and just went wild.
She was incredible. I mean, and it's so interesting because again, the show sort of followed her path to power, and ultimately, she was the winner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
She won the whole kit and caboodle at the end, I think. Right?
Well, I think Chris Boucher has said numerous times it wasn't supposed to end that way.
Right. That's only how we saw it end. We didn't.
Yeah, it was going to be renewed, and then and there have been numerous fan fictions, including my own, that wrote around the ending. So there's, obviously they could have gotten out of it. And
absolutely.
And that's the wonder of and that's why it has inspired so much fan fiction. Is it? It was only a few seasons, but it was deep and rich, and all the colors are easy to sample and then paint on.
Absolutely.
Now Servalon, and of course we have poor old Travis, who morphed from dark and sinister to
insane.
Yeah.
Really big insane.
Yeah. Crazy.
and this is no reflection on anyone who portrayed Travis, but either actor. But to me, like Travis was always like the worst character because it's just like there's so many nuances in Blake Seven, but one of them is that you just know Travis is never going to succeed, so he becomes kind of this pitiable, foolish character because he's Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah.
Every week something is going to happen to prevent him from succeeding, or the show couldn't continue. I call him the hapless pursuer. I mean, so it's like the poor guy. I mean, he can't catch a break. So, but so the character becomes very one note because of that. So he, as opposed to President Servalon, right? That
Right.
she's not one note. She is so multifaceted. Like she's like she's a character playing ninth dimensional chess. Um, and what her real problem was that she had underlings like Travis who couldn't execute her plan. That's what she would tell you, right? But
Well,
you kind of get it.
that's the thing with, as somebody has said, all of the bad characters got the letter T. Uh, Tarrant and Travis.
Right. People didn't like
Um,
Tarrant very much, right?
I do believe we have our co-host back.
Mark. Oh no. Oh my
No,
God, I waved and he disappeared.
where are you? Add to stream. There you are. Okay, well, we'll see. He's sideways.
That's right. Now he's
Mark, you're sideways. You can really tell we're not a professional.
Oh, that's okay. Come on. Right.
Well, that's a podcast, It's if you are professional, they start sending you nasty notes and stuff. Anyway, I guess I'll put him in.
Oh, you sent him to the Phantom Zone.
He's his senior engineer, so he's very meticulous, and I don't, But anyway, Tarrant and Travis were, I think, the low dogs on the totem pole. Tarrant, of course, didn't have a whole lot of fleshing out that they were able to do with him.
Right. I always felt that. I felt like when Blake departed the show for where they were going to go look for him and things like that, and you had Avon in control and in command, that Tarrant, immediately is belligerent with him. They're immediately belligerent with each other. It's like they so much wanted to have that tension back that Blake and Avon shared, but it never really feels natural or organic. It's like, why are you all like instantly sniping at each other and hating each other? And so, whenever they kind of hit that note, you're like, oh, this feels like a rehash and not like organic or legitimate.
Right. Yeah. It was just stuck in there as a story device.
Right.
I
agree.
And that's what Darrow said too, is that there was no way really to develop that relationship on screen because Avon's off in this direction, and basically Tarrant is just grabbing hold of him every once in a while, going, "Don't do that."
Right. But we don't really know what drives him or motivates him, things like that. What he's really after. Sometimes you think he's true blue, sometimes you think he's not true blue, but we don't ever really get a sense of it.
And they didn't need two characters like that. Avon was the Loki.
Right.
Blake
yes.
said, we didn't need two tricks.
Right. So something goes out of balance when you have when you have something like that, and it's like, so two people are running schemes simultaneously, that kind of becomes a little hard to keep up with, and you don't know who to root for, especially because Avon was really became the hero of the show, even though he was an anti-hero. I mean,
Yeah.
Joel, my son, he watched them all with me, and he really liked it. I mean, I told you I loved the first season, but he really liked it with the third season when Avon was in charge. He's like, this guy's great. Right?
Yeah, wow.
He's like, he's so funny, he's so sharp, he's so smart. And there are episodes where he would be running a show sort of behind the scenes, like and it played out all the angles, and you didn't know till the last minute. And my son loved that. He just
Oh,
loved that.
Can you hear
yeah.
me now?
Yes, you're back.
Oh.
Can hear you.
I have lost my spectrum.
Oh no!
Oh no, that's terrible.
I am
It
on
was
5G.
me last week. This week it's you. We both have the same cable company.
Oh no.
I'm on
Yeah.
5G with my iPhone. So
There you go. There you go.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah, but be careful with that 5G stuff. I understand it like buoys in it.
well, as long as no airplane goes overhead, I'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Yeah. Yeah,
That's the
John, may
problem.
I ask where you're located?
Yes, I'm in North Carolina. I'm in a small town between sort of two big towns. I'm in Mint Hill, North Carolina. So I've got Charlotte on one side of me and Monroe on the other side. But very nice spot.
Our eighth great grandfather, Job Sosby, um, owned a big part of that area.
Oh, really?
He got it in the Revolutionary War
Oh my gosh.
and I have a great deal of affection for both Carolinas, and our grandparents all of our grandparents were Southern, so.
Oh, see, so I'm originally from New Jersey, but I met my wife when I went to school in Virginia. We were married for 25 years, but we've been together for like 30 years. And then to go to school, we came to Carolina. So we've been in North Carolina since the mid 1990s. And I teach here, and she's a therapist. So we love North Carolina. And we've had, unbelievably, because we haven't had snow for years, we've had 2 snowstorms in 1 week here.
That's how it goes.
Right. It's like nothing for years and years. And then suddenly, yesterday we had 3 inches, and on Tuesday we had like 2 or 3 inches. I was like, oh, wow. So, that's unusual.
All of our grandparents
Is that where
decided
Mayberry was?
to LA. With
Mayberry, South Carolina, I think.
Oh, I thought it was north. Okay.
I
Mount
think it was. I think it was south. I hope I'm right.
I think Mount Erie is in South Carolina.
I think so.
Well, there really is no Mayberry.
No.
The towns they mentioned as being near them were in North Carolina.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Mount Pila, I think, is something like that. And I forget the other town.
Seen Andy Griffith since our grandfather was alive, so that'll tell you. Anyway, getting back to, I have to say one of the things I loved about Blake 7 was Terry Nation seemed to have this whole universe of metaphor and themes in his head that he would pull from. And it's been compared to The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, interesting.
Avon needs a heart, needs a brain. Villain needs courage. He's a cowardly lion.
Right.
It's scary. It fits so well. And the brothers Karamazov, Ivan, and
right.
the what was the one that I noticed. I even wrote an article about it and got pelted, but
oh no.
the fans tend to be protective, and I pointed out that I think V was essentially sort of regurgitated, reformatted, and Blake 7, because the characters are, have the main guy whose name I don't remember.
Mike Donovan. Donovan, right? Mark Singer, right? So he was Blake.
Then we have Hannah Tyler, who's Avon.
Then we had Willie, who was Villa. Diana would be Servalan. Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay, interesting.
It does. It fits. But, most of those things are probably unconscious and, that sort of thing. And also just going to tropes as a source for synchronicity and meaningful patterns and that kind of thing. But
It's interesting because they're both sort of about fighting sort of this vast authoritarian fascist force, which could be interpreted probably as being more right wing than left wing, because it was more like like the Nazis or something. They're more like leftist guerrilla forces. Do you know what I mean? The
yeah,
Blake's folks and the resistance in V, things like that, going against like a statist,
yeah,
authoritarian
so,
fascist kind of thing. So that is a really interesting comparison. And it's funny too, because if you think about it, V was so popular in the United States in like 83, 84, 85, right? And then Blake 7 got imported, I mean, even though it had been long canceled in Great Britain, but it came over to us in like 86, 87. So maybe that was all stuff, roiling in our culture at that time,
I think so. I think
Yeah.
probably just archetypes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
That's an interesting observation. I have to admit, I hadn't thought of that, and I love V. I don't know why I think it, but now that you said it, I can't not think about it.
I liked V too.
Yeah.
Certainly better than Battlestar Galactica or some of the other ones. But Mark was always, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, and I think he froze like that for a second.
Yeah, you did.
He
Yeah,
blew
be
us a
careful.
raspberry, and then it froze.
Remember what Nancy used to say: "Be careful of the faces."
That's right.
Anyway, I my feeling is I'm a bit cynical. Okay, and so science fiction as it plays out in American culture generally is not my thing. Although I have to say I just have never been able to get into Doctor Who either.
Okay.
But Blake 7 was made for me.
Well, it's really interesting because pre Star Wars. Okay, so Star Trek is very optimistic.
Yeah.
We can conquer the future. We can be better. We go out into the universe, and we've learned our mistakes. We're no longer children. We've grown up, and I love that. That's a great philosophy. But if you look at like what happened in the '70s, the early '70s, that's when we got stuff like Silent Running and all of these like Soylent Green, all of these really
Yeah.
dystopian futures where the future seemed grim, and a lot of them were about like states that kind of took over. Like there was in Silent Running, all of our forests were in space, and like the government orders them like cut loose, like or something, and in Soylent Green, of course, they're feeding us people, right?
I think the year of Soylent Green.
Right. 2022. That's right. I spoiled the movie for anyone who didn't know. But so it's like, all of that dystopian stuff, right? And then Star Wars comes along, and Star Wars like wipes that slate clean and says, no, it's not the same optimism as Star Trek, but it's like, the Jedi Knight, the Force, you can believe again, you can have faith. Anyone who wants to believe can harness this thing, and it's very optimistic. But then along comes Blake 7. It's like, no, we're going to do Star Trek and Star Wars, but we're going to do it like this dystopian thing where we're going to go back and examine all those things that make a dystopia. But there's going to be that swashbuckling aspect to it. So, it's really interesting to see how it sort of fits in this with the '70s and the different shows there.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the TV series Vampire Diaries.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The lady who wrote the original novels, L.J. Smith, an old friend of mine, and she's also the biggest Blake 7 fan in the entire world.
Ha!
She used to say, "It's important whether Avon likes Blake. It's important."
Does Avon like Blake? Does he respect? I think he respects Blake, but does he like him?
I think so. I think we see little glimmers of it. Now, he's not going to admit it in a billion years, but I do think there's genuine liking in this sort of generic sense.
Right.
But I think he admires him to a certain extent. And I think possibly he sees things about himself that he wish he could embrace.
Right.
But yeah, it's
I do think that's true because my whole reading, and again, it's my reading, so I take responsibility for it, and it's like how I feel. Not everyone has to feel that way, but I feel like the end of the series and that last episode is Avon when he does what he does, because I don't want to spoil it. After he does it, he realizes he's wrong, and I think he kind of realizes that Blake's way of doing things was the only way. That
yeah,
you cannot lead a resistance unless you inspire people, unless you bring people together. Sort of that what you were talking about before, Melody. That ruthless logic and cunning. You have to have that too, but that's not enough. That's
yeah,
not enough to run the resistance. So that comes to that. Does he like Blake? He definitely respects Blake, and I think he comes to realize because he's at the end he smiles,
yeah.
and I think that's the smile that says, "I'm a fool."
But there's also that wonderful Servalon scene in one of the episodes where she says, "You wanted to believe that
Right.
Blake was alive,"
Right.
and that's where I get the idea that there was a glimmer of something
Yeah.
that he wished he could have. And I should bring my brother back in here. Mark,
No, I think he might be frozen again.
is he frozen?
I think he
Oh
is.
my God, he is.
Poor guy.
Poor Mark. I'm
He's stuck in
sorry, kiddo.
carbonite today.
Yeah. Well, that's last week. It was my week to
Oh.
have technical issues. So it's probably something karmic.
Well, hey, at least you're past it, so that's good.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what's going on with Mark.
Who knows? I mean, it's bless his heart. He's got his daughter and son-in-law and two grandkids there with him, so
Oh, that's lovely.
they could all be working on the on the internet. But
Technical issues.
exactly. But it was fascinating because I everybody had dinner with Paul Darrow. That's how you got a piece of real estate in Darrow's life was by taking him out for food
That's great.
and wine. And we took him out many times for dinner, the whole group of us.
That's
And
lovely.
he said once, I said, "Do you think Avon liked Blake?" And he said, "Well, let's see. Do you think he liked Blake?" Yeah. He says, "Then yeah, I think he liked Blake."
See, even there, he was like answering his Avon. Like, what was the sort of cunning answer that was right in that room, but may not have.
Exactly.
That's great. That's a great story because that's a perfect sort of encapsulation. If he did love Blake, there would be very few places he would admit that.
Yeah.
Very few times, very few places. I think he knew certainly by the end that he needed Blake. That
Yeah.
he needed Blake. That. He'd gotten to test his leadership, this sort of cold, ruthless, logical leadership, and he still had people who followed him, but it didn't end well.
Right.
So, I think he did at some point realize, he'd sort of been a fool and that he needed Blake. And with needing, there must have been some realization that what Blake had was of value, and then it's an easy step to liking him from there. So that's interesting.
Yeah. It's in a way I keep seeing new things in the show. As I rewatch it or think it over again or read fan fiction, which I haven't done in ages, but um the you find different levels all the time.
You too. And one of the things that struck me when I watched it with my son, so this was like many years after I'd written the book, and I don't think so I obviously didn't catch it when I was whatever, 28 years old or whatever when I wrote the book, but I caught it when I was 50 or whatever watching it, and I thought, how could I miss it? But I came across this thread in the shows so many times, whereas I just kind of wrote it off as wasting time originally, but there are a lot of different episodes where there are like lengthy scenes of just like people in the Federation like working together, like, and they're not important. They're like officers, and then like, or not officers, but like enlisted people, and then like Blake and Avon will come in and kill them or something. There was one. Was it Deliverance where they had to go like rescue a president and they're like soldiers guarding the grounds, and like they had like a lengthy conversation in the control room. And then there was the scene on the spaceship that was transporting them to Cygnus where they're talking about like one of them was going to school, and it's like, oh my god, there's all this stuff like if like 3 or 4 times in the series where there's this like blue collar thing where you're just looking at like these people who are enlisted in the Federation like running a ship,
and they're just doing their thing,
being guards, and it's like, oh my god, it's a whole like it's like if there was a Star Wars show from the perspective of a stormtrooper, just like a workaday stormtrooper, and then one day Luke and whoever they show up and they like, we're breaking in, we're killing you, and it's like you're just trying to survive. So I was stunned sort of when I caught that, and I realized I hadn't caught it before. I think I had written it off, or when I was 28, whatever, as being like, oh, like they're just wasting. What is this? It's just filling time. Why are they just focusing on these guys? But then like I watched the whole series in a really short time during the pandemic, like I said, and like so all those scenes kind of came out. And I was like this is a theme that like I never excavated or saw before. All of these moments with these like no-name Federation people, and like what it's like to be living in that. And I thought that's really interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it was. Oh, all right. Seeing as how I ditched Battlestar Galactica, yeah, let's all do our. Yeah, you're back. Okay. Why don't you do your little defense of Battlestar?
I like Battlestar Galactica. The main thing I like about Battlestar Galactica is, well, there's 2 things. There's no aliens, and there's no cell phones. Everything's attached to the wall.
So you're talking about the Battlestar Galactica reboot. You're not talking about the
right. No, the original.
Aliens.
The original show was just silly. It was just silly.
You didn't care for the original.
All right. See, I was talking about the one with Lorne Green.
That's what I say. I say they're aliens in that. They're Ovions and Cylons and Moray and.
The original, you had Lorne Green and you had this glue sniffer, Lloyd Bridges.
Yeah.
Oh, right, from Airplane, right.
He played Admiral Kane in the original.
Commander Kane of the Pegasus, yes.
Yeah, the one that was played by what's her name, Rolarin from Star Trek.
Right. Well, I don't, at the time of the reboot, So I mean, it's really just a matter of what you like. Like the original was like really grounded in mythology. It's like they go through a red minefield to get to escape Israel, the tribes, and it's like parting the Red Sea. I mean, it was really mythological based, and I really liked that. And rightly or wrongly, they got rid of all that for the reboot and said, no, it's politics based. It's 9/11 in space. It's like, we're gonna, so I mean, it was a totally different paradigm. I'm not saying that, you can't succeed in that paradigm, but it was a completely different kind of show. One was like based on these like Toltecs, Atlantis, the pyramids, right?
Well,
and the other, it's like, remember when Dick Cheney told someone to go F themselves in Congress, and then on Battlestar Galactica, someone said, "Go frack yourself" to the government. It's like, man, they're just ripping that right out of the headlines. They're just ripping it right out. And for me, that was a little transparent. It's like I like metaphor in science fiction. Yeah. Like having to think and put the pieces together. It's like you see that and you're just like, okay, this is it's just very transparent.
The reboot had it too, though. Kara Thrace, it turns out, was an angel. by the end of it, and they still had the 13 colonies and the Apollo and the uh, zodiac signs, and
Right.
so there
They
was
they did
still a
adopt
lot.
that from the original. Yeah, but the problem was, it's like, I always say, because people loved the rebooted Battlestar when it came on, and then it ended, and then people stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
And you have to, kind of like Game of Thrones, you have to kind of ask yourself why. Why did people love it and then stop talking about it? And
I,
the answer for me is, those episodes would begin. The Cylons have a plan. The writers did not. I mean, the series Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, basically ended with people who'd been in an advanced society saying, "Let's get rid of indoor plumbing." So the Cylon stuff. I mean, that's never going to happen. And then become our ancestors on Earth.
Yeah.
I mean, and like they flew their ships into the sun. That's like one of the dumbest endings in science fiction history. I don't mean to be mean, but it's like, okay, I get why no one talks about it now, right?
well, but if
I
you
like indoor
recall,
plumbing. Maybe the Cylons will find me, but
if you recall in the series, there were several times that they basically talked about the fact that the technology is what was their downfall.
right.
You know,
Absolutely. But if
and then
that meant
it
getting
kept
rid of indoor plumbing and clean water and
well, it kept happening over and over where they went to all these different planets where the Cylons and
yeah,
the
it happened before
humans,
and it'll happen again. Yeah,
right?
no, I
And
mean
it
that's
kept happening. So they figured, okay, we'll do something. We'll drive everything into the sun. We'll get rid of all of that, and then it's bound to be different.
So that's the key, and it's always the writers that kill a show because if when you run out of ideas, you run out of ideas.
right, right, right. I
The
mean, and listen, I'm not trying to pick on the rebooted Battlestar Galactica. I mean, we all have, we all have our taste and the things we like, and the worst
Oh,
thing to
sure.
do is to not allow people the space to like what they like. I love Farscape. I love Blake Seven. Um, Star Trek, Space Nine. Like so many things I like. People could pick on too. It's just a matter of what we enjoy ourselves.
Well,
And
one of the shows I liked, it's silly as could be, was UFO.
oh, I love UFO. Come on.
I mean, and it's absolutely ridiculous, but it's fun to watch.
it's topical now.
It is. It's like we got our base under the movie studio. No, I love UFO. UFO is great. Such dark stories. The confetti check A-OK. We've
Well,
got question of priorities. These stories about Straker's life, and he has to give up sacrifice his son in one. Oh my gosh. I mean, UFO. I just love it. But yeah.
well, and it was Jerry Anderson and his people. They did amazing special effects
Oh,
for the
absolutely.
time period that this was
Incredible.
being done. You look at what they were doing on Thunderbirds
Hmm.
and these shows, and then compare that to what they were trying to do in some of these other silly shows where you could see the string holding the ship up.
Well, I mean, when George Lucas was making Star Wars, he came to the set of Space 1999 to try to crib as many people off of Jerry Anderson and Sylvia Anderson's Space 1999 to get them on Star Wars because the special effects were so ahead
Well,
of their time.
some of Anderson's people are the ones that worked on the Death Star.
Yeah, well, Brian Johnson, of course, went on to win Oscars for Aliens, stuff like that, where he did, and he was the director of special effects for Space 1999. I think he did Empire Strikes Back.
And Anderson discovered several things that they ended up using in other shows, like using alcohol instead of water.
Well, I just
Because on a miniature, they made smaller drops,
ripped.
so it looked more realistic.
Well, I love the works of Jerry Anderson. I mean, I'm a huge Jerry and Sylvia Anderson fan. I love Space 1999. I love UFO. Uh, I loved the Super Mario Nation shows that I watched when I watched those later. I loved Stingray. The one the submarine. I love Stingray. Stingray was so much fun.
Well, I grew up with Supercar.
Supercar, Fireball XL5. I mean, you could just go on and on. What a rich vein of work that Jerry Anderson created for us.
And I grew up accidentally calling him Freddie Mercury instead of Mike Mercury. You know,
That's something different.
how many people are named Mercury? You know,
That's great. That's great. Well, I mean, it is funny because one of the things I talk about in my book is all like the props from Jerry Anderson that ended up in Blake 7.
Yeah. That is one funny thing is to watch follow the bouncing.
Right. Follow the bouncing props. Follow the chairs and the desks from Space 1999 into Doctor Who, into Blake 7, into Moonraker.
The costumes too.
Yeah.
All you got to do is watch the people who were involved in making it. And if they're involved in two different shows at the same time, you will see the props. That's what happened with Lost in Space and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Right.
There'd be an alien on Lost in Space, and then in a couple of weeks, it would have seaweed hanging on it, and it would be a monster on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Right. Irwin Allen, yes.
The robots. The guy that built the robot for Lost in Space also built Robbie the robot.
Right. I love when they had the War of the Robots. That was an episode of Lost in Space. Where's Robbie?
Yeah, when Robbie was on there. Yeah.
Well,
I knew the guy. I knew the guy that was inside of the Lost in Space robot. A guy named Bob May. Oh, he had the strongest handshake you ever felt in your. He's one of those people. He's one of those people you walk up and shake hands with, and you're like, "Oh God."
Well, my friends, we are at the top of the hour, so that means
it says we have 3 minutes and 20 seconds left.
Oh, silly me.
Don't you cheat me out of 3 minutes and 20 seconds? I'm sure John's got his next book that's going to be coming out. He has to talk about. Yes, what are you going to write on next there, John?
Well, my next book should be coming out this spring, and it's horror films of the 2000s. I love writing about horror films.
Excellent.
And I'm working on a production that's a continuation of a web series I created called The House Between. We're doing audio adventures. It's about a group of people who sort of interact with the multiverse through something called a smart house, and sort of all the things that happen to them. What's that?
I love that idea.
Oh, thank you. So the old episodes from like 2007, they were made. They're super cheap, black and white. They're available on YouTube, but we are continuing the show with these audio adventures and getting the cast back. So I imagine that's going to premiere sometime in 2022. We're already sort of working on the next season of those stories. So I've got horror films of the 2000s and The House Between audio adventures.
And your Blake 7 book is available on Amazon.
Yes, it's still selling after all these years.
Yeah.
There are a lot of fans of Blake 7 and of Red Dwarf on Facebook. Tons of them.
I always love it when I see a Blake 7 post. You know, I love The Liberator. I was so sad when it blew up.
I know. Oh.
Yeah, my son had a hard time. I was like, why did they blow it? Why did they do that, Dad? You know, that was a horrible mistake.
It's kind of difficult to have somebody like Avon, you know, overseeing the Liberator.
Right. Someone who might have not used those jewels for that room with all the treasures for
the right reasons. Yeah,
right, exactly. Right.
All right. Well, that is it for this week. I hope you will come back, John. You've been just a joy.
I would love to. This was so much fun.
Oh, good. And we're very laid back here, as you can tell.
I love it.
We don't muscle it up when it comes to mechanics.
I felt right at home, so I don't know what that says, but I love it.
All right. Well, we've adopted you. We now have a new brother.
Thank you very much.
Now, I have to ask a quick question. Okay. Since you're a fan of old horror, what did you think of Pumpkinhead?
Oh, I loved Pumpkinhead. Oh my gosh, what a great movie! So powerful. I mean, the thing that struck me was Lance Henriksen's performance in that film. The father who lost his son. So emotionally affecting, you know, people. And I remember at the time people just dismissed it as another sort of slasher, people getting killed movie. But you know, you had this sort of Appalachian myth, you had this great performance, and you had that, and then of course the terrible thing happens to Ed Harley, Lance Henriksen's character, where he has to sort of pay for what he's brought into the world. I love Pumpkinhead. It's a classic. It's great.
Good, then I'm not the only one that likes it. Good.
Yeah, in horror
And
films
you
meetings,
said
I gave it 4
after
stars. 4 stars, buddy. 4 stars.
Okay, I think we gotta go now.
Okay.
For you.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Well,
Thank you.
We will see you all next week. Thank you, John.
Thank
And,
you.
have a good week.